Welcome back to Uncover Your Magic. We know we are all going to die. We know this fact, but so many of us are afraid or avoid the subject most of our lives. I have interviewed a few people on this podcast who have had near-death experiences, and I find the stories so similar and so fascinating. My guest today is David Ditchfield, who is coming to us all the way from the United Kingdom. I just finished his book, Shine On, which I couldn't put down. I think it needs to be made in a movie. You will understand after David explains his experience how even more connected we are to our guides and angels and how they are always with us. I know this episode will be one you will want to share with all of your friends because David gives death or the afterlife a vision of such beauty and peace, and another reminder that we are all one and all love. Here is a little excerpt from his book about David. He was an atheist, an alcoholic, and his life was falling apart. Then he was run over by a train. It turns out it was a gift, one of several his angels, guides, and even God or the divine gave him. It wasn't just a second chance, but a powerful message he brought back. He came back able to paint, he couldn't before, and to write music. His first symphony got a standing ovation. He could do nothing of the sort beforehand, and he stopped drinking cold. David Ditchfield, near-death survivor, musician, symphony composer, and author of a brilliant book on his near-death experience, Shine On, the remarkable story of how I fell under a speeding train, journeyed to the afterlife, and the astonishing proof I brought back with me. His profound experience and the messages he gained will help you transform your life as well. You'll discover your own gifts the angels have embedded within you. Remember to go to my website and sign up for my monthly guest speaker events I have going on. February was with Dominic Zenden, the Aura Reader. You can find that on recorded on YouTube if you missed it. And also this March will be Vanessa Stewart. She channels the angels, and that episode with Vanessa and I was 81. If you haven't listened, go back. She will amaze you with her gifts, which is why she is coming March 5th live on Zoom to answer all your questions and maybe even channel your angels and guides. So without further ado, let's bring David Ditchfield to the show. Please welcome David Ditchfield to the show. Welcome, David.
Hi, thanks for having me along.
Oh, you're so welcome, and coming all the way from the United Kingdom. You're in London, Cambridge?
I'm in Cambridge, yeah. That's where I am at the moment, yeah. So that's it. So yeah, it's okay here, just evening time for me, morning for you.
Yes, thank you.
So, yeah.
Before we pushed record, I was telling you that I've been reading your book, Shine On, and I talked about it in the intro. And there's certain books that kind of speak to me, or I can visualize the whole scene so clearly the way it's written. And I've really enjoyed it, and I've enjoyed the when everyone, we all are going to die, and we all seem to either avoid the topic, or don't try to think that it's not going to be something that we have to experience in our life, avoid. But when I want, before we go into your near-death experience and your accident, I find fascinating your story before that happened. And the words that you use are, shame, unworthiness. I don't think self-love would come into your vocabulary during those years before this happened. And why I say that is when I was touched by listening to, the struggle that you had, like, being dyslexic and, all the, trying to, make it in London, this high, highly educated, highly successful neighborhood, trying to find a relationship and going through all those struggles, feeling not worthy and all that. But would you take us to that place? Because I think if people understood this moment, because I always call it, because it's uncover your magic, the magic moment, or, when did you figure out your magic? It was under that
Sure.
train. It's like,
Yeah, exactly.
who would have
Yeah.
thought, right? Like
I
in your
know.
life, to look above
Yeah.
and say, well, as soon as I get hit by get run over by that train,
Mm,
that's when my
mm,
life, I'm going to start seeing my worthiness, and I'm going to love myself.
mm,
But could you go back to those stories of you trying to find yourself and how you were raised and all that?
sure. Well, where I was raised in a place called Worcestershire, which is like in the middle of England, and I went to like a state school, what we call them comprehensive schools in the UK, and it was a pretty sort of fairly rough school. It wasn't sort of, you didn't get that much care. There was an awful lot of kids being taught in that school, and they kind of graded you pretty soon. They pick out the kids that they can see are going to succeed and they're going to get all the grades, and they encourage them and push them. And I was one of those who wasn't in that stream because, as you say, I'm dyslexic. They didn't actually diagnose me at the time as being dyslexic because I had no idea at all. And so I was constantly told that I was trouble, that I was lazy, and I didn't want to cooperate or didn't want to learn, which is completely not true. I actually wanted to learn and I wanted to do something with my life, but I got this thing, which is dyslexia. I was just struggling to understand and keep up with the rest of the kids. So when I left school with very little qualifications, and so I remember being encouraged. We had these things, these meetings at school towards the end, where they say, "Right, you're not going to university, that's for sure. So here's your choice. There's a factory down the road. You can go and work there." And I'm going, I'm not working in the factory. That's not for me. So I didn't do that. And so basically, most of the work I was picking up was just kind of like sort of casual work, sort of mainly manual work, manual labouring work, sorry, on construction sites or whatever I could get. I was working in kitchens, washing up dishes, anything, just to get by and pay the bills. I moved to London, yeah, as you say. I moved there because I thought, that's my big hope. That's my big chance. If I get to London, maybe I can make something of myself there. Maybe people will understand me. So I did move to London. I had a great time there. I did enjoy it. I loved the city, the whole vibe. But for me, it was a struggle because I was continuing to pick up manual labouring work. And I realized by this point that I wasn't actually very good at that kind of work. These other guys were really skilled at what they were doing on the sites. And they used to call me speedy. And, in other words, I was slow. And I just
Mhm.
thought, where do I fit in this world? Where do I fit in? And I befriended quite a lot of people when I was there who were working in the music industry mainly and things like that, and entertainment, and doing really well. And I just wanted to be part of that world, but that door was never going to open for me. So I found myself. I started to pick up most of my work in the local bar. That's where you go to pick, you hang out with the construction worker sort of managers, and you'd say, hey, any work going tomorrow and stuff like that. So you kind of hustle for work. So you'd end up hanging out at the bar every single evening trying to hustle for work, and then you're drinking, and then all the money's gone. And then I suddenly found myself drinking, depending on alcohol, basically, to sort of get me through what I figured was a failure within myself of not being able to fit in anywhere, not being able to find my identity. And so it became a problem purely from the point of view that it was just not feasible to be able to live like this. I was running out of money, I was running out of luck, I was running out of work. So it got to the stage where I thought I'd hit rock bottom. I'd hit the bottom. And it was, and I know there's a lot of people been there. This isn't like me saying, oh, poor me, I'm a poor old guy, or whatever, poor young guy, whatever it was, but it's more like the question of, a lot of people are in this position. A lot of people who've read the book realize that that's how it is for them as well, that it's a struggle for so many of us. So, yeah. Well,
Okay, you could
yeah,
keep going, but let me.
yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
No, so the what caught my attention was, yes, the drinking, the bars, the friends that you met there, the women that you dated and the worthness, the one woman that was very successful, and you went to the dinner party and you drank too much because you were uncomfortable. And, that was, I could still see that vision. I could see the movie play out.
Yeah.
And then you finally figure out, like, you think that, I think there was a moment where you'd heard something about a medium, and you
That's
went
right.
and
Yeah.
said, I'm going to go to this medium. And you thought, were you going to your sister's? Will you go
Yeah, I
there?
was.
Because I
Yeah, I
think
was going to
that's a
visit her for
pivotal
the
moment
weekend.
right there. Yeah.
Yeah. It was, because I was non-spiritual. I had no faith or anything, to be honest with you. I didn't have time for all that. All I had time for was just like living by the day. And I was on the train on the way up to see my sister, and there was an elderly couple sat opposite, and they were confused as to where the rail station was that they had to get off at. So I was helping them with that. And the lady started to engage in more conversation with me, and to be honest with you, I was feeling like I don't want this conversation. I was actually hungover. I've been out with my friends the night before, and it was just like, no, please, But she was lovely, and she was quite insistent. She said, "Look, we're off to see a medium," and she said, "This medium's brilliant." And I said, "Oh, okay." And she said, "You should come. Here's the flyer." So she handed me this flyer, and it was somebody who was completely unknown, sort of, but was incredibly good, because I ended up going. I got to my sister's, and there was a lot of chaos going on at the time. I just decided I'm going to go and see this and see what it's all about. And it was packed. I walked into this. It was a small spiritualist church in Cambridgeshire, and I found myself a seat near the front, and I sat down, and the medium came out. She was brilliant. She was very animated. She was walking backwards and forwards, and she was getting all these messages like quick fire, and they were all completely bang on the money. Everyone was going, "Yeah, that's my grandfather, that's my husband," or what have you. So people were delighted to be getting all these stories from their loved ones. And at that point in my life, I wasn't looking for that. Nobody had passed on that I really needed to connect with. So I just sat there and enjoyed the show. And suddenly she turned around, and it was a very different sort of approach, but she turned around and said, "Gentleman over there in the blue sweater." And I went, "Oh, me?" She said, "Yes, you." She said, "Your life is about to change." And I went, "Oh, okay." I thought it was going to be a lottery winning, I thought it was going to be getting the girl I wanted that you talked of earlier, and then all these different things. And I said, "In what way? What way is it going to change?" And she walked around. She was really animated. She was like talking to them, having a conversation with her guide. And she was going, "Yes, yes, yes. Okay, okay." And then she turned around and she said, "They're not telling me, but all they're saying is be prepared. It's going to be big, but you'll be protected." I went, "Fantastic." So, that was it. So I went off, thinking it was going to be the lottery winning and all stuff like that, but nothing more of it. But then obviously I realized, some time on after that, that I had this accident, and then a huge spiritual awakening, and that's clearly what the message was all about.
Right. Okay, then we need to go there, because people are going to love this story, and I've heard it so many times that I don't think I could hear it nonstop, because it's so powerful. And when it comes from somebody, and why I wanted you to share your story that, isn't spiritual, and, before this, and, doesn't really believe in God, and, the guides, and, all these, amazing things that you do now.
Yeah.
That's when I feel like it's so relatable, and someone can understand, coming from you, where it's like, yeah, I've heard of, many people that have had near-death experience. I'm sure now that you've had one, you've probably talked to so many where you can compare stories, but there's a similarity to them. And I think it's beautiful. So let's go to, you met your Anna at the
That's
bar.
right. Yeah,
She was
yeah.
a bartender, and I love that, like, where you loved her energy, and you kind of finally found somebody that that there is a connection.
Yeah, I found a connection, and also, to be honest with you, I found that I was being real with her, and I realized that I wasn't being real with anybody else at that point in my life,
Right.
And so I was acting my way through life, But with her, I just kind of felt, there was this sense of realness with her, I had no choice with her, because that's the way she was as a person. And so what had happened was, as I said, I ran out of money. I lost my apartment. You know, I had to leave. So my sister said, "Come and hang out with us for a few weeks and get your feet back on the ground." You know, so I did. And while I was there, Anna was texting me and she said, why don't I come up and see you? I said, yeah, great. So she came up for a few days and we were just hanging out, just having a good time, you know, and she had to get back to London. So I took her down to the rail station and to see her off. And that's where my whole life was about to change at that point, because I was just helping her, with her bags and saying goodbye, and helping her onto the car and stuff with her luggage. And we gave each other a hug and a kiss, and we were saying goodbye. And it was pretty much at that point that my coat, I was wearing like a sheepskin coat, which was like 3/4 length. The bottom corner got trapped in the automatic closing doors, and I knew I wasn't going to pull it free. You know, it was a thick quality coat, and it was like, wow, this is stuck. And the engine started to rev up. I looked around. I yelled at the top of my voice for help, but there was no one around. There was no guard on the platform, you know. And there was just one other guy stood there who I'd seen saying goodbye to his girlfriend, and he shouted at me. He said, "Take your coat off. Take your coat off." And I just said, "No, it's not going to come off because it's like this sheepskin." It's just like, no way. It's just wrapped very tightly around me, you know. And anyway, the engine started to rev, and I looked into the eyes of my friend Anna, and I just saw the look of terror right across her face. And I just thought, this is it, you know, I'm going to die, because I thought there's no way I'm going to pull free. So the train started to pull out the station, and I went with it. Then I lost my footing, and I remember hearing every gear shift. You know, they really go fast. Trains pull out of stations so fast. You don't think about it when you're sat inside. You know, you go straight onto your cell phone or whatever, and you just start texting friends, and you're not thinking about all that. But when you're attached to the outside of it, believe you me, it's very, very fast. Sure. It's very fierce, you know. And anyway, I got pulled along the platform edge, and then I got sucked between the edge of the platform, then the speeding train itself, and I went under. And that was the point where I just kind of felt like I was being sucked into this great sort of dark pit, you know, and I was thrown around relentlessly. I was just tossed around like a rag doll, and I was fully conscious throughout the whole of this ordeal. But you know, I was determined not to let this beast kill me. That's what it felt like. The train suddenly became this huge mechanical beast, as I describe it, you know. And I thought, no, you're not going to take me. And eventually, I got thrown down to the ground. You know, and I was thrown onto the gravel in between the tracks, and the train was still going on at high speed above my head. And I just heard it, you know, just going back constantly, one carriage after another. And I thought, it's not over yet. You know, part of the undercarriage could just whack me over the back of the head. It would all be over. So I put my face into the gravel. I remember thinking of all the Indiana Jones, Bond 007 movies I'd seen, and thought, right, what would they do now? They would get their head right down. Yeah. So it's amazing what happens when how the brain, you know, operates to help you, and survival. You know, it's a fight or flight mode. You know, and so yeah, the train eventually moved on, and I remember it just going off down the track, and then the noise and the clatter suddenly disappeared echoed into the distance, and there I was lying on the track in complete agony, and this quality sheepskin coat was now ripped to shreds. You know, and oh yeah, but so I was in a bit of a mess, to say the very least, but it was just so amazing to be alive. You know, I just remember it was beautiful. It was a February day, and the sky was just like very bright blue, and there wasn't a cloud in the sky. And I just felt so in touch with nature at that point. I felt in touch with the world, you know, and
yeah. Even with your arm like in shred, like all shredded.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's even with my arm in shreds, you know, it's just because it's a moment. I can understand, this sounds crazy, but I know why people do things like bungee jumping there, because they are sort of simulating what I went through. You know, they're going through that thing where their mind is, they know what they're doing. They know it's all being controlled, that they're jumping off that bridge on a big cord, but the mind doesn't know that. The mind thinks that they're about to die, you know, and then the fact that they survive, they feel great, euphoric afterwards. So there was a sense of, wow, I'm alive, you know. But yeah, but that didn't last too long, because I suddenly realized that the state of my arm had been cut. It had been from the elbow right down, it was like barely there. And it had been ripped right open, I could see right inside, and it was just very, it was a mess. So I knew things weren't too good. And yeah, the emergency guys arrived really quick. There was a small hospital just around the corner from the station. So they were there, and they jumped down on the tracks, and they started cutting through my clothes, and somehow got me off that platform on a stretcher and into an ambulance, because it's a long way down. You don't realize it's quite a lot. It's a drop,
Right.
So yeah, they did that without putting me through too much, distress, I guess. And yeah, I remember the doctor in the back of the ambulance said, look, there's a hospital around the corner, but the one that's really going to save you is a 25-minute drive. Can you do it? I said, yeah, let's go. So the siren went on, and we just screamed off down the highway, and when I arrived at the hospital, there was like a whole team of medics already waiting for me. I remember seeing them all in there. I thought, this looks pretty serious. And it sounded serious, because, when they got me there was all these doctors sounded really frantic, and there was a lot of panic. I didn't understand what they were talking about, because it was all science going above my head, And so I thought at that point, it's not all over yet. I just, I still felt a sense of like, I'm not okay. This is not good.
And it's your arm. It's nothing else. Like your face is fine. You put it in the gravel.
My face was fine. Yeah, my face was absolutely fine. It was just my arm had been severed, basically, from, as I say. So there was a lot of blood loss. I was losing copious amounts of blood by this point. And then my family arrived. My family came in, and I remember the guy, the surgeon who was actually working on me, was an amazing guy. He took great care of me, and he said, look, your family are here. Can you see them? And I said, yeah. Well, I didn't realize they'd be here, send them through. So they came in, And I remember seeing Anna, and I saw her there, sat right at the back, like this kind of frightened lamb, just sat at the back of the room in complete shock, And I just wanted to talk to her, I said, look, can you get Anna to come forward? She came forward, and I said, are you okay? And she said, yeah, I'm fine. She said, I can't believe you're alive. I saw you go under. There's no way I thought you would survive that. And she told me a really beautiful story as well afterwards. She said that she'd heard, the announcement over the sort of tannoy system, that there'd been a fatality at the station. So she figured that was confirmation. But the train didn't stop until some time, she said. It kept going for miles at the station, and then finally they found a guard, and they stopped the train, and they were sat in the middle of the countryside. And so, figuring that I was dead, she said she turned around to all the people. It was a very busy commuter, sort of. All the people were coming back from work, and that. She said everyone was reading their newspapers and laptops, and she said, "Oh, can we say a prayer for my friend?" And she said a woman stepped forward and said, look, I'm a Christian. Would you like me to take the prayers? And she said, please, yeah. And she said they just laid down all the newspapers and laptops, and the whole carriage just said this prayer for me. And it was so amazing. And I felt that energy from those prayers when she told me afterwards. I said, oh, do you know what? I felt that energy. It's just, so I really believe in the power of prayer. It works. If anybody is suffering in your life, and and do pray for them, because it does work. It's an incredibly strong energy. Yeah.
But you remember feeling that before when you were laying in the hospital, you felt
that's right. Yeah, I remember feeling it when she
that.
Told me afterwards, and that I felt that energy. I knew that I was getting this love. It was just coming through.
Right. Oh, I love that. So then your family's there. And then all of a sudden, this is the moment where you are escaping your body.
That's right. Yes. I'm escaping all the franticness of the hospital, all the agony and the pain and stuff. And I suddenly went from a brightly lit hospital to what appeared to be like a darkened space. Not a foreboding darkened space, but a comforting one. And I was suddenly greeted by these pulsating lights that were all around me. They were like landing lights at an airport, and I thought, where am I? And I figured straight away that I thought, okay, I didn't make it. I am dead. I thought I passed on. And it's strange, but I didn't actually resist it either. I know that I've since, as you said earlier, I'm sure I've spoken to a lot of people who've had NDEs, and I know there are some people who resisted it, and wanted to come back. They got too much to live for. They got families and children and stuff like that. So I can understand that. But I guess for me, I didn't want to die, but from what I'd just been through, that it was so hellish that it just felt great to be in this comfort and to this beautiful, place that was just, and all the pain and all the agony had gone. There was no more pain, and I just felt so relaxed. And I just laid my head back and tried to figure out where I was, And I felt that I was no longer laid on this sort of trolley in the emergency department in the hospital, but I was suddenly on a huge slate rock. It was like a big medieval altar, if you like, and I just felt, wow, where am I? What is this? And I looked at my body to check, my wounds, to check and see how everything was looking, And when I did look, I was covered in just like a blue satin sort of silky sheet material, and nothing else. I was no longer clothed, but it felt really comfortable to be laid on this rock, which seems kind of strange because you wouldn't think it would be, but it was. And as I lay back, I remember looking up and I could see 3 grids of white light were coming in, closing in towards me. And I couldn't take my gaze out of this light because it was like a healing energy that was coming from this white light. And it was so bright that normally I would not be able to look into it, but in this realm, it was possible. So, yes, as time went on, I started to feel that there was a presence. I felt somebody was there. If somebody just walks into a room and you've got your eyes closed,
Right.
And that's what it was like. And so I opened my eyes and looked up. There was this person that was just stood at my feet. An androgynous being, if you like, who was just wearing this simple black t-shirt like I'm wearing now, very contemporary, nothing too ethereal, and that was it. And with this sort of white blonde hair and this kind of skin that was just glowing like an energy light that was coming from the skin. It was just beautiful, like a lovely glow. But I knew this person. I was looking at this person, and I actually said, I know you, don't I? Who are you? I know your face, And this person just kind of kept smiling at me and, reassuringly, and not giving anything.
That's what I love when I was listening to it. It's like when you're in that whatever zone, that whatever, it's telepathy. You're asking
right.
it. Yeah, I love, because I'm getting to understand that in different, why am I blanking on, different
stories from others? Yeah.
No, just, when you're in a different, somewhere else, like when you don't have your eyes to see, you can stare at that light. It's not blinding. You can listen without speaking. The senses aren't there. So it's all through your mind.
Well, it is, because ultimately what I realized was, even though when I looked down to check my body, that was my body that was lying there, and it was me that was in that realm. But what I realized was it was that the actual pure essence of my soul that was there. So it was my soul. So there was no emotions attached. There was no sense of time. There's no sense of worrying about time, And I'd spent most of my life before that just focusing on time, or worrying about the past or past mistakes or missed opportunities, worrying about the future, worrying about how was I going to make money, make something in my life, all those things. And I never really thought about the present moments. Whereas there, I was in the present moments, and it was the best possible feeling, just to be in that space and time. And so things were different, but one thing that was different that I noticed was the clarity of it all. There was this kind of sense of it being ultra real. It was just like, wow, it was like more than 3-dimensional, and it was just really quite astonishing. But I knew ultimately that this person that was stood there, who wasn't giving me any answers verbally, was really, this person had been with me throughout the whole of my life and beyond. This person was like my soulmate, my guardian angel, or my higher self even.
Right.
And so that's why this person looks so familiar.
Mm-hmm. So you feel that that person is, now you're connected because you have seen that soul
Yeah.
with you, but you believe that that soul has been with you for lifetimes and lifetimes.
Indeed. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
That feeling,
For
just
many lifetimes.
that comfort that you felt with his presence.
Yeah, that's it. And so, when people talk about having a guardian angel or having spirit guides, that's exactly true. And there were two other beings suddenly appeared as well, who were both female form. There was the girl to my right was kind of quite European looking, again wearing a simple brown dress, and the girl to my left was more sort of American Indian or Asian Indian or even Brazilian, and she was wearing like a more traditional dress. But they both had their hands just hovering over my body, just kind of like they were just kind of like healing me, healing the trauma that what my body had just been through.
Hmm.
Even though I say that was my soul that was there, obviously my body is part of my soul. It was part of my history, and so that body was being healed. But I felt more so that it was my soul was being healed. I felt all the hurt and the shame and the pain and all those different feelings were being slowly peeled off me one by one, and they were just getting right down to this pure essence of me, my soul, who I am, and so they were healing all those wounds that we all carry. Like I say again, it's not me feeling poor on me. It's like we all carry wounds. We all carry emotional scars, don't we? Things that have happened in our lives, normally from childhood, because we're so. I realise now, when looking back, that childhood is so important. It really is, because that's when we're absorbing so much knowledge, aren't we? And so
Yes. Yes. I mean, I want to go in there really quick because I am a mom of two girls that know that, they're programmed, these limiting beliefs, from 0 to 7, or, it's just, once you get to in your 50s and you realize all the programs that you've played, your whole life that have stopped you from living a true, authentic life, that you had to go under a train to wake up and realize that you are this amazing soul that is pure love and light, and can do anything.
yeah,
And
we all are. Yeah,
we
exactly.
all are,
Yeah,
right?
that's it. Yeah,
But I
we
try
all are.
to, I teach children these tools. I'm passionate about that, and
Brilliant.
why I brought that up when you were talking about childhood is because I feel like that's why I wanted you to explain your childhood, because I feel like, when you think of, we're all not going to have near-death experiences and, have this awakening like you did, but to be aware that they are, just these beliefs that you think are true but aren't, and to
Yes.
live free of that, and to live with that love that you now found within that moment, is profound to me. And it's a lesson to everyone to know that we don't need to, go under a train and experience a near-death experience. We can do that now, and living in the moment, looking around, looking like you did on that slate rock covered in that blue silk sheet at the people around you, and believe that there is that, and it is just a belief.
Yeah. It's a belief, and to me, it's a reality as well. It's like, I've lost both my parents. My father passed 6 months ago, and when both of them went, for me, it was yeah. Obviously, I mourned the physical loss and grieved for them, and I was really heartbroken. But it was such an incredible comfort for me to know where they were going. And just knowing that when both of them passed, that I knew that their souls were just going. I remember I said to my mother, when she passed, I said, "Well, Mom, I know where you are now, and I know you're going to love it up there. You're going to love that space." And it's a real comfort to me. And I just hope that whatever I do when I talk about my story, that other people who are in situations where they might be caring for loved ones who haven't got long to go, that they can take something from it, take some comfort that it's not the end. Because I mean, basically for me, I just feel that the soul is too strong an entity to just suddenly stop.
Right.
Yes, the body does. The body just will suddenly slow down and stop and die. But the soul continues on, because our souls are so powerful. In fact, when my father did pass, he was like so physically weak, but his soul was just so strong. It was like this dynamo that just kept him going. And I think even the doctors around who were saying, like, he hasn't got long to go, were kind of surprised when it was like the next day, yes, he's still with us, and actually, funny enough, he was prepared to go as well, so he wasn't trying to cling on for life. But what I realized was that his soul was just so powerful that it wasn't that easy for it just to suddenly make its transition.
Right.
So yeah.
So when you are looking at these two, one female on your right and the other on your left, and you're feeling them heal your soul, you see the white light that's shining so bright that you would be blinded by if you were in your physical body. Do you believe that is God? That is our one, what is that shining down on you?
Well, no, that was I think that was almost like those three grids of white light were this basically the introduction of sort of giving me some healing energy. That wasn't the most profound white light that I saw. The most profound white light that I did see was in a huge tunnel. And I know everybody talks about seeing the tunnel of white light in their near-death experiences, and everyone's got a different story to tell. But my story was that I actually felt the energy of it before I'd even seen it. I'd been, my experience continued on, and it was a very final part of the experience where I was laid there and I was enjoying all this healing that was going on, and I suddenly felt like I described it, you would have read it in the book, that every single molecule of my body was vibrating with this energy of love. It was like unconditional love was just going right through me. And I thought, where's that coming from? What's going on? And then I lifted my head, and just beyond the being of with the blonde hair that I talked about was this huge tunnel of white light coming towards me. And by the way, by this time, I realized I wasn't in a small darkened space. I was actually in the universe itself. There was a lot going on. So, and so to see it coming through the universe and coming towards me was just like so profound. And it was like this tunnel of white light was just surrounded by all these flames that were slowly rotating around. So it was very frightening to look at, but in that realm there was no sense of fear because there was no emotions that like that, so it was more excitement. I thought, wow, this is remarkable, and I knew, again, you talked about telepathy, and the telepathy was telling me that this was the source of all creation. This was God. Yeah. So what I was looking at was God, rather than the usual image of what we're all led to believe, that whatever faiths are, there's normally some kind of human attachment. In Christianity, most, obviously, is the guy with the beard, on the ceiling of the Vatican in Rome,
Right.
but no, this wasn't a guy with a beard. This was like this huge tunnel of white light. So that was like a beautiful, profound moment for me to understand that and feel that I was in the presence of God, and that God does exist. For the first time in my life, I suddenly got it,
And you felt it in your body, like every molecule, every cell was vibrating with love.
That's it. Yeah.
That everything is love.
Yeah, exactly. Unconditional love as well. It's just not. It's like all the different forms of love that I'd received throughout my life, whether it be from my mother, say, or from my girlfriends, or my friends, or animals, pets, whatever. It was all those different types of love, because they were all so different, but they were all kind of combined into one, and they just were just running through me, and there was no sense of like, is this love going to last? I thought, yeah, it is. That love is there, and that love is meant for me. And it sent me back, because after I came back into my body, I came crashing back into my body in the hospital from this beautiful experience. it was interesting because most people say to me, "Oh, you must have been really disappointed coming back, you know, because it was so amazing." And I said, "No, I wasn't, because I was still charged with all this love and this energy that I'd been receiving from the other side. That I was just going, wow, that was amazing, you know." I just thought, right, what's my mission? Why have they sent me back? There's obviously a reason. What do they want me to do, you know?
Right.
And and that kind of question was like hanging over my head for weeks. You know, I kept trying to find out what it was.
Like,
What it was.
why did I come back? You didn't even have a
Yeah.
choice. You know, you always hear those stories
No.
that you have a choice to stay or come back. But you didn't finish the visual you had, the
Sure.
stars, like the Niagara Falls.
Oh yeah, yeah,
I
sure,
want you to
yeah.
go there because I
Yeah, of
love that
course.
visual. And why do you think it's stars and the, I don't know, you
Yeah.
explain that.
Okay. Yeah. What happened there was that it was at a point where I'd been laid out on this rock for some time, and I started to think about my family who was down in the emergency department. I thought, well, my mum had been in tears anyway when I was down there, and I thought they're going to be really pretty cut up now because clearly I'm dead, you know. So, so I just kind of like I just thought I better check them out. So I kind of looked over the edge of the rock, hoping to see them, but I couldn't. I didn't see them. But what I did see was this huge waterfall of stars, and it was just like it was like a huge arc like, yeah, like you say, the size of Niagara. You know, it was just like very powerful. But instead of tons of water sort of cascading over the edge, it was millions of stars that were just sparkling, and they were like shooting stars, kind of flying all over the place. And I thought, wow, this is incredible. You know, that was the point I realized that I was in the universe itself. And I looked down, and I remember looking down there, and as I looked, I started to see colors and nebulas as my eye focused, and I realized I was looking from one universe into another, one galaxy, sorry, one galaxy to another, and into infinity, you know. And some of the colors and nebulas that I saw there, I painted, and it's interesting because here's some wonderful affirmation for me, because I realized that one of my friends, in fact, and my sister as well, she got in touch with me, like, this is about 2016, that one of the telescopes, you know, that they got up in space now on the satellites, the Hubble telescope, had taken some photographs from far corners of our galaxy that had never been seen before. And all these beautiful nebulas were just like what I painted, you know.
Oh my
And it was like I'd
gosh.
already painted these things, you know, and there they were.
Wow.
Science had now brought back, you know, the same
Huh.
images that I'd seen there. So it was like, wow, that was just remarkable to have that sort of moment of affirmation.
Man, wow.
Yeah,
So when you come back and you're in the hospital room after
yeah,
this experience, you see your family
yeah,
and they give you confirmation because they were watching you while you were experiencing this amazing uh,
yeah,
place
yeah.
outside of your body. And they could tell even by looking at your eyes how
Yeah, well,
you
it
were
was Anna
feeling.
who'd noticed that.
Anna did that.
Yeah, yeah, she did. Yeah, because I was so keen to tell her. She was stood right over me when I came back, and I said, "Anna, I've just got something that's so amazing to tell you, and this is really important." And she was going, "Not
Oh,
now, not now," you know. Obviously, she didn't realize where I'd just been, you know. And she said, "Wait, you can tell me later." So I did, but yeah, but when we spoke afterwards, when I did tell her the whole story and what had happened, you know, she was so drawn into the whole thing, and she said, "I know." She said, there was your eyes; they suddenly changed. You went from you were in such pain and such trauma, and you were so scared, and suddenly you looked peaceful. You know, your eyes suddenly looked really calm and at peace. So yeah, so there was a sense of her knowing that and seeing that, but there was lots of other interesting things as well. You know, it took me a week to tell my parents, because both my parents were Christian, and I thought this is probably going to jar with their faith, and it was important for me for them to understand this, and I didn't want it to upset everything that they've been taught in their church, you know, and
right.
so I waited for a week, and then I started telling them, and I told the whole story as I've been telling you, and they just sat there and listened. And then my mum turned around afterwards and she said, "We know." And I said, "You know? How do you know, Mum?" It's this, and I suppose call it mother's instinct, And she just
Right.
said, every time we walk into the room, because I got this room to myself in the hospital because of the state I was in, and she said, "We come in and you've got tubes and wires coming out of you, and you've got nurses all around you, but you're just giving out this energy. You're just glowing every time we walk in, and it's like you're caring for everyone else around you."
Huh.
And they knew it. They could see that the shift basically in me. They'd seen the change in their son, so that was like really lovely and really beautiful. Yeah.
Did it change their view of their religion or their beliefs of God from that?
It's a tricky one because I realized that it was that one thing they did say to me was, because I said to them I was concerned that they might not be able to understand it, and they did say to me, actually, it's hardly ever talked about. I said, do you talk about the afterlife much, in your church? And they said, no, only really sort of, the story of Christ at Easter, when he comes back from
Oh, right.
after being crucified, and that's the resurrection. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word,
Yes.
the most important word in the Bible. And but the resurrection is the only real thing that they talk about. But they never really talk about the fact that that when we pass it, that's and discuss what the afterlife is like or anything. It's never really talked about. So yeah, and I realised that's true because I went along to a couple of services afterwards because I was so curious about religion and faiths and all sorts of different faiths. I remember
Right.
I had when I was I couldn't drive, I couldn't catch a train. I was catching taxis everywhere, and I had this taxi driver who was Muslim, and I used to chat to him and ask him all about the Muslim faith. I was keen to know how all that
Huh.
worked. I was keen to know more about Christianity. So yeah, I went along to my parents' church a couple of times, and sat through some of their services, and I thought, oh, it's interesting, that it's true that it's not really addressed, that much. So yeah.
So let's go into the gifts that you brought back. And I think once you got rid of those, once you they healed your soul with all that love,
Yeah.
the gifts that you took you had inspired thought, you had these thoughts of music and art to
That's right. Yeah.
painting first.
Painting came first, yeah. When I was lying in that hospital, I was just concerned that I was going to. I thought I'd never heard of a near-death experience or anything like this before, and I thought it was only me that had happened to at that stage, And I thought, I've got to. How am I going to tell everyone about this? And I've got to make sure I remember it, So I thought, right, I'm going to do a painting once I get out of hospital. And I'd never really done anything like this at all, But I thought, no, it's got to be a huge Renaissance style painting like these big sort of ones that you see in the Vatican in Rome with all the biblical scenes, it's got to be dramatic. So I thought that's what I'm going to do. So that's when I started painting. I started doing, so once I was well enough, I started painting. I got myself a canvas. I stuck to my word, and I got this huge canvas. And I was apprehensive starting it because I thought, you don't come back superhuman. I still came back with emotions, thinking like, am I going to be able to do this? Because I didn't want to mess this up. This is too important. But once I started painting, it was incredible because it started to come together on this canvas immediately, as if I'd just been and had a 2-year crash course condensed into one day, of how to paint. And I was being helped. I was realizing that I was channeling energy through from this other realm because I felt like I was still very attached to that other side. It just didn't suddenly end and cut off. I felt like there was a cord and of information coming through to me. So I was prolific. I couldn't stop. So I just kept painting and painting. And people used to come up. There was a lot of synchronicity started to happen in my life after the NDE. One of those moments of synchronicity was I met 2 friends of my sisters, and they said, look, they run a yoga Pilates center, and they said, we've got a studio space going for a week. You can start your first painting there. So I said, yeah, okay. And of course, I never finished it. But they said, no, we want to keep you here. Yeah, this is great. We love having you here. And I got known as the artist in the attic, So people would come in who were coming in for yoga sessions and come up and chat and to ask me what was going on. So I started talking about it. I realized that a lot of people were fascinated by the story. And then one of the people who came up there was a cello player in the local orchestra, and we became friends, and we used to go for coffee and stuff, and stuff. And it got to the stage where I was inspired to start writing music, you know, and this came through. I was going for spiritual healing because I'd gone back to this church where I'd had that message, you know, from that medium, you know, because I wanted to try and track down that medium and talk to her, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was really important to me to try and find her, you know. And and while I was in there, they said, "Oh, we do spiritual healing here." And I said, "Okay, that sounds great," because my arm was pretty banged up at that point, you know, with all sorts of plastic hanging off it. And
Wow.
so I was being healed, and some of the healers there are clairvoyant, and they would give me messages, and they kept saying things like, "Why am I seeing a violin laid across your chest? I'm hearing Beethoven and Wagner and stuff." And I was going, "I have no idea," you know. And then one of them one week turned around and said, "They're telling me you're going to write some music about your experience." I went, "Great." So I'd already been so, you know, prolific with the paintings. I thought, I'm going straight home and I'm going to start writing what I thought was going to be a song, because that's all I knew. I'm not classically trained, and classical music never even entered my sphere, you know.
Right.
And so I got this old cheap Spanish synthesizer, and I dusted that out, got it out of the loft or whatever, you know. And all I got was a cassette recorder and this little synthesizer. And I tried to write this song, but the song wasn't coming. And then one day I was inspired by this chord progression that I just started playing, and it sounded totally different than all the other bits I've been doing. I thought, wow, this sounds great. And I started developing in it. As that day went on, I thought, this sounds like something that should be performed by an orchestra. So I thought, I'm going to contact my new friend, the cellist, you know, and speak to her and say, "Look, this is what I'm doing. I'm writing this piece of music, you know." And she actually turned around and said, "Well, maybe we could perform it in our orchestra." And I thought, brilliant. So I worked really hard just to try and get this whole thing together. I say I worked really hard. It was starting to come together just really quite fast, you know. And but I needed help, because this is an orchestra we're talking about here, you know, and then they need music, you know, they need the score. So
Right.
I spoke to my brother, and he said, look, you know, he'd been to university, and like he'd studied, and he said, look, I've got this app that I can give you, and if you attach it to your laptop, and you'll need a different keyboard. When you play in all those notes that you're playing, instead of recording them onto a cassette recorder, it'll digitally record what you're doing, but also it will transform it into notation.
Wow.
So I did that, and then printed it all off, and took it to the first rehearsal. Walked into that rehearsal, and I was really nervous, because I thought, I don't even know if this is going to work.
Right.
First of all, but also,
Wow.
these people are like highly educated, sort of, you know, middle class musicians who take their work very seriously. And here's me, a working class guy with nothing, you know, knowledge at all, you know.
Oh
So we
my gosh.
walked in, and and I remember the conductor said, "Will you speak to the orchestra about your piece?" And I said, "Oh, no, that's fine. You know, I'll leave it to you." And he said, "No, come on, David." So I did. And do you know what? All those fears just went to the side, because this piece was actually about my near-death experience, and I called it The Divine Light. And as soon as I talked about the piece and what it was about, everyone was so captivated. Everyone was asking me questions. And so then I'd found the confidence to say, "Look, when you play this piece, can you make sure it sounds like this or that?" You know. And anyway, I stepped back, and the conductor's baton came down. You know, the moment of truth: is this going to work or not?
Wow.
And you know what? It was the most incredible feeling, because those little chords I'd been playing on that little cheap synthesizer were now being played by an orchestra, and the sound was just beautiful. It was just how I'd imagined it in my head. And I
Wow.
couldn't believe it. And I was just, well, I could believe it, because I thought, it's happening again. I'm being helped. You know, I remember looking up, and I was going, wow. They were rehearsing actually in a church, which is converted into a venue, you know. And I remember looking up and going into the rafters, going, "Thank you."
Oh,
Just, yeah.
wow. And then you had one that sold out. You started explain you went and had they sold tickets to to the orchestra, and it sold out, and you got a standing ovation.
That's right. Yeah. I realized that all that came about was because the orchestra, it was at this very first concert, the debut concert, and they said, look, would you mind talking to the local press, saying a couple of lines about your piece because you've written something? And I said, yeah, sure. So I spoke to the local press. And they said, hang on a sec, you're the guy who went under the train, yeah? And I was going, yeah. They said, we know all about your story. Wow, yeah, this is going on the front page, So it did. And then the phone started ringing, and then the BBC wanted to come and interview me. And so because the BBC coming along, then all of a sudden it was on the news, and then it sold out 2 weeks in advance.
Wow.
But it was, the difference is that it sounds odd, but there's a different energy between feeling. I didn't feel a sense of ego. I didn't feel a sense of, hey, the big,
Right.
the great I am. It was more like brilliant. More and more people are going to get in and come and hear this piece and understand what I'm trying to convey about the afterlife and what it's like to have a near-death experience. That's all I could think of,
Right.
and it was true because it was packed. The atmosphere in there was just like tremendous, and the performance. Was the orchestra were really happy because it was such a busy venue. I mean, there were people standing around the edges. It was just like tremendous vibe, and so it was great for them to perform it, and they did an amazing performance. And so, yeah, like you say, so when it finished, I didn't even realize it was standing ovation, and because my family and myself had been given front row seats, so we were sat at the front, and when they finished, I remember my mum throwing her arms around me in tears, going, David, that was just so beautiful, And I was just like hugging my mum, and that's all I could think of, And then
Right.
my sister's right next to my mum going, David, look behind you, And then I looked, and everyone was stood up. It's like, oh, wow.
Oh my
It's just,
gosh.
So it was a tremendous success in terms of that message getting across and everybody really feeling it and feeling the emotion of it all. Yeah.
But so when you look at these gifts that came from this experience, the painting and the music and what you're doing now with your life and the book and and how you lived your life before that,
Mm.
how do you how do you put into words, oh, I'm so grateful that this train, how do how do you live your life now? Like looking at things as opportunities, that if that is something, you keep going and you do it because it's a gift, it's a message from God saying this is, keep moving forward and doing all these amazing things and see what else other gifts you can unfold.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just like I've got a completely different approach to life than what I had before. And before, all the time, first of all, I was avoiding any adversities that came my way. And now, when they do happen, I allow those adversities to come. And they're not nice and not for any of us, but I know that they will eventually pass and they will move on. But secondly, I don't have this sense of like, as I say, I was constantly trying to move into circles. I was constantly trying to push doors open that weren't meant for me. So I was stuck, because I wasn't moving forward because I was just knocking on the wrong doors. Whereas now I find that, as you will have heard from what I was talking about, that all the doors and opportunities that started to come into my life happened because I allowed them to come to me. I didn't, what I mean? I was authentic to myself as well, that I just stopped and was me, and I was the real person for the first time in my life. And so those opportunities and synchronicities started to come and unfold, And so, so I continue to be that way. It's like, for example, when the book came out, I didn't know how that was going to go. It came out just before the pandemic. And I actually thought, everyone was saying to me, oh my goodness, your book's coming out and we're going into lockdown, all the bookshops are closing. How are you feeling about it all? And I said, I'm fine, because I just don't know. This is meant to be part of the story. This is meant to be
Right.
part of, who knows what will happen. And in the end, actually, it turned out to work in my favor for the book because I realized that I was able to start doing the kind of thing I'm doing with you now, connecting to people all over the world via Zoom. And I did loads and loads of interviews and just reaching out from, the comfort of my own apartment, rather than
Right.
have to jump on a plane and run out of money trying to travel around the world and promote it, So
Right.
there you go. So you just don't know how things are going to turn out, you really don't. Yeah.
but you know that it's for the perfect, it's like for your highest good, whatever it is.
It is, yeah. If you're being authentic to yourself, then and you find your authenticity, then it is to your highest good. Then it's meant to happen. You know, if I started doing something, you know, that wasn't meant to be, you know, I mean, obviously there's been moments throughout where I've had people working with me for, you know, promoting the book and that and stuff at my publisher and stuff, where they say, hey, you know, you need to get on this show, you need to start doing this and that, and I'm going, that's not for me, you know, that doesn't work for me, and I'm glad that I stuck to my guns, because it wouldn't have worked. You know, I think I would have started. I see it almost like life is like this kind of like highway, and the highway is meant for us. If we just continue going down that highway, and even if we hit a traffic jam, it doesn't matter. Don't be tempted to take the nearest turn off and take the shortcut, because the shortcuts can end up taking you further off the path and stuff like that. So it's a bit like that. I kind of just think, no, just keep going down that highway, and we're on the right highway now. I've found it now. I've found my authentic self, where I'm meant to be going, and it feels good. It feels really good, you know, to be authentic for the first time in my life, I guess. Yeah, you know, and I think that's for all of us. I think that, you know, I mean, I thought to be honest with you, with the whole pandemic, that's what happened to a lot of people, you know, especially in the UK. When we first went into lockdown, people were starting to get in touch with nature for the first time. They were like educating their kids from home, baking bread, or, you know, even painting as well, being creative and stuff for the first time in their lives. So there you go. You know, it's almost a similar process.
Yes, I agree,
Yeah.
100%. What is your relationship with your spirit guides, your angels? Do you know, pray? What has changed in your spiritual practice? I know you go to that church, or the spiritual healing place.
Yeah, I go for spiritual healing. I don't actually attend the services there. You know, there's nothing wrong with the services, but it's just not for me. I find that I connect with my guides, and I connect with God and the universe through the spiritual healing, because it's so intimate. You know, it's just like two people healing me, and the energy that's coming through them, they're conducting that energy, and all three of us feel it. You know, when the healing session finishes, all three of us will just sit there, and we won't talk for a few minutes, and I'll say, wow, that was amazing, and they go, yeah, it was, wasn't it? So they get it as well. So it's just like there's a beautiful connection there. But I pray. I mean, I never actually call upon my guides that much. I don't say, oh, can you help me with this? Can you help me now? You know, but I will pray. Yeah, if prayers are needed, you know, if things are going really tough, you know, in my life, and then I will pray. It's usually for others, to be honest with you. It's like, you know, if people close to me, my loved ones, my family are suffering, or they're facing something that's really big in their life, I just send out prayers. But that's another thing I learned about churches as well. There's a lot of thing about a lot of faiths and a lot of religions. There's a sense of almost like, I kind of almost like you feel a little bit guilty about it, but you've got to be really humble before you pray for what you want. You know, the whole thing about getting on your knees and stuff like that. You know, whereas for me, I think that it doesn't work like that. That the universe wants us to succeed. It wants us to love and create. So I don't think we should have any qualms about it. Just being direct and saying, please, can you help me? Can you help my nephew to make sure he gets this exam result? Can you please get him through it? I mean, there's nothing wrong with that at all. Yeah.
Right. Be direct.
Be direct. Yeah. Be direct.
Yeah. Be authentically direct. Okay.
Yeah.
I just had a thought before we close this up, but you know, I go back to that moment where you thought you were getting a job, had no money left, you were at a place. What would your advice be if you had to go back in time and tell David, you know, this is what I would tell you to get through this moment of what you feel is the darkness of your life, of where you were at that moment with nothing?
Yeah. I would tell myself that you are loved. You are really loved, and to learn to love yourself, which I wasn't doing that. And then once you've found that lesson of how to love yourself, then you'll find self-worth. self-worth will follow on from that self-love. And then when you find self-worth, it's kind of like you'll stop trying to aspire to other people and stop trying to want to be in all these different social circles, and you'll stop acting as well, and that's
Right.
what I would have told myself: just stop the acting, quit it. You don't need to
Right.
do that. You're a great guy. That's what I
Right.
would have told
Oh,
myself.
totally. Oh, I love that. So your artwork, your music, your website, your book, everyone can find you.
Yeah.
Shine On.
Yeah, shineonthestory.com is the name of the website. Yeah.
Okay.
And the book, yeah, is called Shine On. Yeah. So yeah,
Yes.
if anyone's interested
Right
in
here. My
there
little
it is.
book
There's the book.
that I love so much. Highly.
Oh,
I've been
bless you.
telling everybody about it.
Yeah, well,
Love
it's
it.
out there. It's on Amazon. It's so. But as I say, the good starting point, if people want to follow up on where I'm at, is to try and look at the website and just have a look there. And then all my social media links are on there. The reason I say social media because I put my paintings on latest bits of work and stuff like that, and keep everybody informed as to how things are moving.
And there's the music is on there. Your
Oh yeah,
orchestra.
that's true. Yeah.
They can
The
listen to.
Divine Light. Yeah, the first.
Divine
You can
Light.
stream that for free, so you can listen to that. Please go if you want to hear the music. Just go and have a listen to it.
Yeah, beautiful. Oh, you are so amazing, and I'm so grateful for this time with you.
Thank
you. I feel like I know you because I've read the book, so I feel like you're my soul brother. But thank you. It was so fun.
My pleasure. It's been great.
And I wish you everything, because I know everything will. What? Let me go quick. I feel like I see a movie. I see these I just see so many big things. And I know you do too. And I know you're going to take that to the next level in your life.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
Exciting. Thank you, David.
Thank you very much.